On this channel, we try to understand life, not through big theories, but through simple moments, the kind of moments we usually ignore. Welcome to Unwavering Mind. If this kind of story speaks to you, take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us reach more people and allows us to keep creating stories like this. And this is one of those stories. There are moments in life when nothing is really wrong, and yet something does not feel right. You wake up, the sun is shining, you have food on the table, you go through your day, you do everything you are supposed to do. From the outside, life looks normal, but inside, there is a quiet discomfort. It isn't a sharp pain, it isn't a loud sadness. It's just a feeling that something is missing, like a puzzle with one piece lost under the rug. And the difficult part is, you cannot explain it. If someone asks what is wrong, you do not have an answer. Have you ever felt that? When life is not falling apart, but it also does not feel complete. Slowly, your mind starts searching. It says, maybe I need more discipline. Maybe I am not doing enough. We begin to believe that if we follow a right path, we will finally feel right. And that is where most journeys begin. Not from a failure, but from a quiet, haunting question. Stay with this story, because this might not just be about a boy and a dog. It might be about you. Chapter 1: The Unseen Thread. This is about Kaito. Long ago, in a time of oil lamps and paper walls, Kaito lived a life that worked, but he was restless. At 16, he did not have the words for it. He only had the feeling. One evening, walking home through a cold downpour, he found a small puppy, white as frost, barely holding on. He named it Yuki. 8 years passed. Yuki grew, but his soul stayed the same. He was Kaito's witness. He had been there for every sunrise and every silent heartbreak. Sometimes, on very clear nights, Kaito would sit on the porch with Yuki and look toward the dark silhouette of the distant mountains. In the deep silence, the faint, ghostly sound of the monastery bell would carry on the wind. Kaito would whisper to Yuki, "Do you hear that, Yuki? That is the sound of truth. That is where I must go one day, to find what is missing." Yuki would simply tilt his head, listening to the hum in the air, then rest his chin on Kaito's foot. Kaito thought he was explaining a dream to a dog. He didn't realize he was teaching Yuki the way back to his heart. And sometimes, what is always there becomes invisible. We stop seeing the things we do not lose. While Yuki lived in the moment, Kaito lived in his thoughts. After 8 years, the restless voice in Kaito's head grew louder. He looked at Yuki and thought, "You are so lucky. You don't have to seek the truth." He didn't realize that for 8 years, he had been living with a master. Chapter 2: The Heart's Longing. Kaito's decision to leave did not happen in a single moment. It built slowly, like a thought that keeps returning, no matter how many times you ignore it. Every day, Kaito felt the same quiet question: what am I missing? He loved his home. He loved the routine of the seasons. And more than anything, he loved the silent companion who had been by his side for 8 years. In those 8 years, they had become one soul. They had walked thousands of miles together. They had shared the heat of the fire and the quiet of the rain. Kaito knew every gray hair appearing on Yuki's chin, and Yuki knew every shadow in Kaito's eyes. But Kaito believed that his love for Yuki and the peace of his home were not enough. He believed that the answer to his restlessness was out there at the monastery. The night before he left, everything felt heavy. Kaito sat on the porch, his bags already packed. Yuki sat beside him, leaning his weight against Kaito's leg, just as he had done every night for 8 years. Kaito placed his hand gently on Yuki, and his heart felt like it was breaking. He looked into Yuki's eyes and saw a devotion that he felt he didn't deserve. And then, Yuki slowly leaned forward and licked his hand. It was a small, moist touch. Kaito's eyes filled with tears. For a brief moment, he almost stayed. He looked at the dog who had stayed by him through everything, and he almost put the bags away. But the mind is a powerful master. It whispered, "If you stay, you will never understand the truth. You will always be incomplete." Kaito whispered, "I'm sorry, Yuki." He pulled his hand away, but his fingers lingered for a second, memorizing the feel of Yuki's fur one last time. The next morning, he left early, quietly. He didn't leave because he was cold. He left because he was desperate to find peace. Yuki watched him go, not with panic, not with confusion, just watching. Kaito did not turn back, not because he didn't want to, but because he knew if he looked at Yuki one more time, he would never be able to leave. At first, nothing changed. Yuki went to his spot by the gate. He sat, he waited. 1 day passed, 2 days passed. Yuki did not move to find food. He stayed exactly where he saw Kaito for the last time. 5 days turned into 10. Yuki's body was becoming thin. He wasn't just hungry for food, he was waiting for the other half of his soul to return. And only then, after the silence of the road became too much to bear, did Yuki begin to move. Not to run away, but to follow. He stepped out of the gate and onto the dirt path. No frustration, no confusion, just continuation. We think perseverance is strength, but sometimes it is simply the absence of doubt. Yuki did not know where Kaito had gone, but after 8 years, he didn't need to know. He just needed to move. Chapter 3. The Part of 1,000 Miles. Far away, high in the cold silence of the mountains, Kaito reached the monastery. Everything was exactly as he expected. Silence, discipline, structure. But while Kaito was trying to find peace through stillness, Yuki was finding it through movement. Every morning, the great bell of the monastery would ring through the valley. To Kaito, it was a signal of another day of hard work and difficult meditation. He would sit for hours, his legs aching, his mind fighting against the memories of home. He tried to be holy, he tried to be still, but the more he fought his thoughts, the louder they became. He didn't realize that the same bell was reaching down into the forest below. Miles away, Yuki was moving. He was no longer the groomed companion of the village. His white fur was matted with mud. His paws were cracked from the sharp mountain stones. One afternoon, Yuki reached the edge of a rushing river. The water was gray and violent, fed by the melting snow. Any other animal would have turned back, but Yuki stood at the bank, his body shaking with fatigue. He lifted his head and listened. Through the roar of the water came a low, humming vibration. It was the same sound Kaito had whispered about on those clear nights on the porch, back home. To the monks, it was just a signal. To Kaito, it was a search for truth. But to Yuki, it was the heartbeat of the only person he had ever loved. It was the way home. He stepped into the freezing current. The water swept his legs out from under him. He was tossed against the rocks, his lungs burning for air. But Yuki did not panic. He simply kept his head above the water, swimming with a strength that came from 8 years of devotion. When he finally crawled onto the other side, dripping and cold, he did not stop to rest. He shook the water from his coat and kept walking. The nights were the hardest. In the deep forest, eyes watched him from the shadows. Wolves circled the scent of the small dog. But Yuki did not move like prey. He moved with a quiet, steady focus. Even the predators felt it. There was something in his movement that was not afraid because he was entirely consumed by his purpose. Back in the monastery, Kaito was sitting in front of a stone wall. He was frustrated. "Why is my mind so loud?" he asked the master. Why can I not find the silence I am looking for? The master simply pointed to the mountains. The silence is not found by stopping the noise, but by following the truth. Kaito didn't understand. He went back to his cell, trying to force himself to be enlightened. He didn't know that just a few miles below him, the truth was limping through the snow. Yuki had reached the high pass. The air was thin. The wind was a knife. Every step was a battle against the end of his strength. But then the bell rang again. This time, it was close. The Great Reunion. One morning, Kaito simply stopped. He was running out of questions. He stepped outside into the courtyard, the morning mist hanging heavy in the air. And there, coming through the gate, was a ghost. Thin, tired, walking step by step. It was Yuki. There was no sudden reaction, just a quiet shift in the air. Yuki reached him and stopped. His body was weaker now, his white fur stained with the dust of 1,000 miles. But his presence was the same. Kaito knelt down slowly. His hand moved toward Yuki, and for a moment, he paused. He looked at the scars on Yuki's paws. He saw the marks of the river and the forest. And then, Yuki gently leaned forward. The same quiet gesture. He licked Kaito's hand, and in that moment, the monastery walls seemed to disappear. Kaito realized that while he was sitting in a room thinking about the path, Yuki had walked it. Yuki had crossed the river, faced the wolves, and survived the mountain. Not because he was a master, but because he never created a distance between his heart and his feet. The search in Kaito's heart finally stopped. In that quiet understanding, something inside Kaito settled. Not perfectly, not permanently, but honestly. For the first time, he was not trying to become peaceful. He was simply at peace with where he was. True clarity begins not when everything changes, but when the need to change everything softens. Because we often travel far, searching for something deeper, only to realize it was quietly walking beside us for 8 long years. So let me ask you, are you searching too far while something important is already with you? Take a moment, think about it. Maybe this story is not just about Kaito and Yuki, because in our own lives, we often look toward the horizon for something more, while quietly moving away from what already matters. There are moments when it is not a place we leave, but a person. There are moments when we don't realize that the routine we find boring is actually the peace we are looking for. We frequently only understand the value of a presence after it becomes a distance. And remember, not everything in life comes back like Yuki did. 8 years of loyalty is a gift, and once it is gone, it cannot be replaced. That is why awareness matters, not later, but now. If you stayed with this story till the end, take a moment to like this video. It helps this reach more people who might need to stop and look at what they already have. And I would really like to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment like this? Have you ever realized, too late, that you had everything you needed? If you feel like sharing, leave your thoughts in the comments. I would really like to hear your perspective. And if this stayed with you, thank you for being here. I will see you in the next story.